This is TWiT.
So it turns out the average tenure of a CISO, a C-level information security officer, like a CEO and CFO and so forth, is just 26 months.
Wow.
Due to high stress and burnout.
Yep.
It turns out that the vast majority of interviewed CISO executives, 88% of the 800 that were interviewed report high levels of stress. 1/3 report stress-caused physical health issues, and half report mental health issues. We've touched on this in the past. Information security, cybersecurity is still a relatively new thing. It's still seen as more of a necessary evil by corporations than as an obvious profit center like sales, marketing, or R&D. Not to mention the fact that the high priests of information security appear to speak in a strange language that that makes no sense to any of the other C-suite executives, who are the ones, after all, who establish the budgets and the schedules. So as a consequence, most companies are still not ready to truly embed CISOs into their company culture and into their day-to-day operations. There's sort of like, it's like that guy who hangs out in the wire closet. So today, CISO jobs come with low budgets, long working hours, a lack of power on executive boards, a diminishing pool of trained professionals that they're able to hire, and a constant stress of not having done enough to secure the company's infrastructure against cyber attacks. There's also continuous pressure due to new arising threats. I mean, look at what we talk about every week. This stuff is real. Like, oh my God, you better not have remote desktop protocol exposed. And, if you do, it's real trouble. It's funny, as I was thinking about this and looking at and reading over this report, it really struck me that this is like the problem with asymmetric warfare. It's not like the British lining up in a row in very brightly colored uniforms with their muskets and like, okay, now we're going to, when we say go, both sides are going to charge each other. This is asymmetric. This is bad guys all over the world trying to pry their way in through a nook and cranny. And, I'm glad I don't have responsibility for a large organization. As I've, back in when we were talking about the Sony hack, Leo, I said very clearly, I don't think it's possible to secure an organization like that. So imagine having the responsibility for the security of a major firm on one's shoulders. I can't imagine it. So anyway, it turns out that through the years, CISOs have often pointed out the problems with their jobs and the stress and damage that those jobs inflict upon them and their families. But there's been no conclusive study up until now to support what were essentially these broad assertions. Last November, Nominet, they're an internet and DNS security firm that we've talked about before. The name's familiar to me. I forgot exactly what their product is, but Nominet, they independently surveyed 800 CISOs and executives from companies in the US and the UK to explore and examine this topic and to determine how much of a role stress plays for CISOs across the industry. The survey's results painted a gloomy picture about one of today's most in-demand jobs. I mean, it's no longer the case that a company can go without somebody whose like job is to focus on the security of the company's internet and networking infrastructure. So what the report found, I have a link to the entire report in the show notes. Actually, I think I do. I don't see it here. But back at the top of this topic is there. So what the report showed, 88% of CISOs reported being between moderately to tremendously stressed. 88%. Nearly half, 48%, said that work stress has had a detrimental impact on their mental health. 40% of CISOs said that their stress levels had affected their relationships with their partners or their children. 32%, essentially 1 in 3, said that their job stress levels had repercussions on their marriage or romantic relationships. The same 32% said that their stress levels had affected their personal friendships. 23% of CISOs said that they had turned to medication or alcohol as a means of dealing with the stress from their job. Nominet, who prepared the report, said that even when they are not at work, many CISOs feel unable to switch off. As a result, CISOs reported missing family birthdays, holidays, weddings, and even funerals. The report said they're also not taking their annual leave, their sick days, or time for doctor's appointments, which contributes to physical and mental health problems. Because, of course, if you never feel like you have enough time in the day to get the work done that you need to get done, you're going to keep pushing those things off. Nominet said that while investigating the cause of CISO stress, they found that almost all CISOs were working well beyond their contracted hours by an average of 10 hours of extra time per week for which they were not compensated. Furthermore, many were under pressure from their boards. Almost a quarter of those interviewed said that boards didn't accept or understand that breaches are inevitable. So what we know of that is, because we've often talked about this, that there's a culture clash. There's those who don't get it, and the CISO who does get it and is not he's not making excuses. He or she is trying to explain this. So the board said they don't understand that breaches are inevitable, and the CISOs reported that the boards would be holding them personally accountable for any security incidents. So you can imagine how that affects stress levels. Nominet said that 29% of CISOs who answered the survey said they'd be fired in the event of a breach, while 20% said they'd be fired anyway, even if they were not responsible. So the answers explain why most CISOs don't last in their jobs more than an average of 26 months, and why 90% of those surveyed were willing to take pay cuts if they could reduce stress levels. Nominet said CISOs were willing to give up, on average, and the reason this is a weird number is that it's an average of the responses, on average, $9,642 per year, so almost $10K per year on average, just to reduce stress levels and improve their work-life balance, which many CISOs said they had problems with. Nominet's numbers may seem staggering to someone looking in from the outside, but of course they come as no surprise to anyone working in the field who realizes what a mess this is right now. Although the Nominet study only surveyed high-ranking CISO executive jobs, the problem is widespread across the industry. InfoSec, or cybersecurity, has a habit of grinding through employees due to the rigors of the job. They said low-level InfoSec positions like threat analysts or penetration testers, are just as bad in terms of stress, if not worse, primarily for the same reasons: a constant fear of new incoming attacks, long work hours, low pay, and very little job satisfaction. So I realize I'm not doing a lot to sell everyone here on the glories of being in charge of internet security for your organization. Within the InfoSec community, signs of the growing problem of stress and burnout leading to mental health issues have been mounting. There are some efforts underway to raise awareness about InfoSec job stress levels, like this report, burnout, along with the mental health issues arising from ignoring this problem. There's also been a rise of so-called mental health hackers, an online community that's been attending cybersecurity conferences on a regular basis now in order to help raise awareness of the topic, that it's a real thing. And I don't see any obvious solution to the dilemma other than time, frankly. The problem ultimately is one of respect. It's impossible for other C-level executives to respect what they do not understand. Traditionally, as we know, nerds and geeks have enjoyed sort of keeping their dark arts a secret, but being understood is vastly more valuable than being mysterious. So part of the job should be to explain and train other C-level execs so they can better understand what the job is all about. And of course, fortunately, time and additional experience with the realities of cybercrime are going, regardless, to slowly bring about a cultural attitude change. We know that that's in process now. When you have like last year's massive, widespread, in the popular press coverage of ransomware attacks, there's no way that C-level board executives are not perforce becoming more aware that this is something happening. And so, yeah, when it happens to them, they realize it's not an isolated incident. It's, there is an aggressive pressure for this to happen. So, unfortunately, as we also know, this sort of change takes time. So I guess my advice to CISOs would be to, as much as possible, try not to carry the entire organization's cybersecurity responsibility on your own shoulders. I'm sure that's easier said than done, but try. And also try to retain a sense of perspective as much as possible. In the end, it is just a job, and your life is yours. Try not to give it away. So, yikes. I mean, it's nice to see a report like that helps to put some numbers to a problem that we sort of say, oh yeah, boy, being in charge of security is stressful. Well, yeah, it's really stressful.